All right, looks like we're recording. And then before you dive into the agenda, Wendy, I just wanted to do like rules of engagement quick. If you're not actively talking, then I would always going on mute to try to eliminate some of the background noise. We have quite a few of us on here today. Then we have this great agenda you guys put together for us. And then I would just ask customer care. I know I've said it a couple of times. I'm probably driving them nuts, but the expectation is that they're participatory and engaged in this call and ask questions. What I did is I selected a group of people from customer care with varying tenures and experience with Harvey, feeling like we'd get a good, a good group of people together with varying degrees of experience and opinions on things. So don't be shy. Looks like according to this agenda, there is a section towards the end that will really allow us to do any Q&A or questions or ask for clarification. So with that being said, I think, Wendy, with the Zoom, you have the opportunity to share your screen. So I'm going to mute myself and let you guys have it.
Okay, and everybody sees my screen, right? The agenda?
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Yes, perfect. Okay. All right, so we'll start. All right, good morning, everybody. It's Wendy and Sandra from purchasing. So Sandra and I had spoken to Lisa quite a few months ago, and we've been talking about just doing, a training / roundtable discussion on just some points that, Lisa thought would be helpful for your team. And we're gearing it more towards, customer care versus the branches, because we understand that you're not in the branches and able to look at inventory and various things that go on there. So I'm going to just kind of go really briefly over the roles of the various people in purchasing, and then Sandra will take it from there with, the various points on the agenda. I am, as Lisa said, definitely, we left open discussion for the end, but please feel free to chime in with questions along the way. We definitely want to make sure we're hitting all the points that you guys might have questions on. So just, just to kind of review what everybody does. So obviously we have the buyers, which is Bill, Josh, and Anthony. So when it comes to, the typical day-to-day stuff, anything that has to do with their vendors, with POs, any product issues, any open PO issues, go straight to the buyer. You don't have to go to Sandra, you don't have to go to myself. Everybody does, does a great job and should know what's going on. So we definitely want you to go directly to the three of them. When it comes to, and then all three of the buyers report directly to Sandra. And so she's responsible for the overall, day-to-day responsibilities of that department. So really anything that Sandra reviews with you today, if you have any questions on anything, that's what you should be going to her for. And again, if you're having any issues, maybe not getting in touch with somebody, but you might be calling Bill for something and you think there's a better answer, we're not saying to go to Sandra for that stuff, but if you feel like you're having issues with any of the buyers, getting some answers, then definitely go to her. And then my responsibility is just managing the overall purchasing distribution department. So I work very closely with sales and operations, Mark McMahon's teams, all the vendors, basically responsible for all the inventory in the branches. So anything that's like above and beyond the day-to-day stuff goes to me. So with that being said, I'm going to unshare my screen and Sandra's going to move on to the agenda. Does anybody have any questions on that so far? Okay.
Okay, so just to quickly start, I'll share our page on HarveyNet, if I can find it. Okay. So any information you need regarding the purchasing department would be under the purchasing page on HarveyNet. So you go to HarveyNet, click on purchasing. If you need our schedule, so who buys what vendor, on what days, I believe it also has the lead time, that would be this purchasing agent schedule right here. I'll just click on that to give you a quick overview. I try to update this only when things like major things are coming up. So if we have a huge switchover, like for example, Josh is going to completely switch vendors with Anthony, or we've now determined that we get a new buyer in the department and part of the stuff is going to go to that person. If a small thing changes, like The lead time is now a week and a half. I won't resend it out just because that I don't want to clog up people's email with those too frequently. I will update HarveyNet whenever something happens. And I do try to change the top part, top right-hand corner. It should say what version it is. I do update that. So if you do go into it and it says, you know, version 224 and the last version you have is 128, I would print out the new version or save the new version. It may be something small, but I don't want to keep bothering people with emails. See, the other things that you can find on HarveyNet would be the vendor rep contacts. You in customer care may not have to use this. This is more along the lines of if a customer comes in and has a problem with one of their products and you need to talk to a vendor rep, for example, like warranty issues. You may not come across that all the time, but this would be the page where you would go to find that information. If you upload it, and the first page is an Excel file.
Hello, Will's here.
Hi, Will. Thank you. We just got started. Thanks.
So if you see on the updated column, if you open this file and it does not have 2020 dates listed, you'll need to clear your browser history and then reopen it. That's something I checked with the marketing department on, and because this is a constantly updated file, if you've opened a previous version of it, your computer saves the previous version.
For some reason, mine's spinning, so.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, does everybody see the vendor contact list, or are you still looking at
I
the
need to share it.
purchasing schedule? Yeah, you may have to unshare. Yeah, for some reason I'm spinning.
There we go.
But-
Does that work?
Let's see in a sec. There we go. Okay, I got it.
So this column C is the updated version. So for example, line 16 and 17 have 2020 dates. That means that this is the most updated version of this list. So let me just go back to HarveyNet. So back into HarveyNet, the last thing on here would be the customer service vendor contacts, which is right down here called purchasing contacts. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. This is all of our vendors that are listed on here with their phone number, our customer service contact, and the customer service contact email. So if you have questions about availability of a product, lead times, whether a specific siding comes in a specific color, stuff like that, this would be the contact sheet you'd want to use. A lot of times we do recommend that people go directly to the vendor first before contacting us, because the vendor will have the most information, more oftentimes, more than we have. Does anyone have any questions about anything on HarveyNet?
And just to chime in a second, quick reminder with vendors and stuff. So, you know, as far as asking them lead times, product availability, you know, that's fine. If you ever need to cancel or change a PO, that definitely needs to go through Sandra and her team. So we never want you making a change with a vendor on a purchase order.
One of the things that Lisa had asked us to go over were SOPs for things such as 4,000 item numbers, ME57. There are SOPs for those. They're on SharePoint. That is not something that the purchasing department handles. It's an operations thing. I believe Marty Rinaldi is the one who heads up that site. Lisa, I think that you may have access to SharePoint. If you wanted to speak with Marty along those lines, I think that's something that you may want to print out and then pass along to your team. And if they have any questions, to contact Marty. Those aren't really purchasing situations. Like, we don't create 4,000 numbers or use ME57. So those, I didn't want to give out that information because it wasn't something that I'd really be able to answer questions regarding. I can tell you that there are a certain number of vendors that the branches and customer care would use ME57 for. That would be Reeb, Dave Sheet Metal, for both non-stock 4,000 numbers and valid part numbers in the system. That's very important. If it's a special order item for a customer, the purchasing department here at corporate does not handle it. Provia, Trim Solutions, Brockway, and Anderson. We do order Anderson storm doors that are stocked in the branches, but that is it. Any custom items would be ordered by the branches.
Lisa, I know you had a question on like 4,000 item numbers and not so much the process, but what we were looking for on the purchasing side. Can you kind of elaborate, like, what, I mean, does it mean like what kind of information that we would want to see on those?
Yeah, and I do have access to SharePoint, and I totally get that, Sandra. I will definitely go in there and see what applicable SOPs I can get my hands on, and I'll circulate those. I remember, and I may be remembering incorrectly, but when we met, gosh, months ago now, that there's some of these special orders or 4,000 code orders were coming in inconsistently across branches, across ISRs, lacking information, and I just wanted some clarity around that in hopes that we can improve the way that we're doing it. And I'm sure the SOPs will help, but if you had any specific examples or requests of us, are you getting them when you, by the time you get them, are they coming in accurately, or are you finding that there are issues with them, the orders?
Are you missing, like, are you missing information? So a
Yeah.
couple things I thought of, chime in, but was, well, one thing that we know with not just customer, you know, it's not customer care, it's throughout Harvey, is the branches, you know, when they're creating a 4,000 item number, they're not putting the correct cost. So we run into that all the time. And from what I understand on the 4,000 item numbers, there is a spot, and it's called list, right? I think it's called list instead of cost. So what we're seeing is either a branch is putting the sell price on the 4,000 item number, which it should never be, because that's only, you know, once you enter the 4,000 item number and it's on the sales order, that's when the list price for the customer is put on it. But
Actually, can I interrupt for just a second? It's
Sure.
Paul Ruddy. Just important. It's one of the asterisks I had that I was going to bring up today. It's net price versus moving price.
Same thing. It's both costs.
That's always the same.
Right.
That was my one big question,
costs.
because
And that's actually the second page of the SOP. I don't have it, but I have seen it, and it does indicate like what needs to be filled in each one of the fields when you're creating a 4,000 number.
Gotcha. So that's always the same. Net price and moving price are always the same?
Yep,
Yes.
right.
Okay.
And unfortunately we can't, because when we created this process a long time ago, we can't change those fields. I mean, in the perfect world, it would say cost. We just have we don't have access to do that. But so that's where we run into a lot of issues, because either branches are putting like the customer sell price and then the cost, or they're putting zero as the cost, or they're reversing the numbers.
No,
And then what happens is,
that's really interesting, because the last couple of years in different branches, you could ask 4 people and 3 out of the 4 people do it differently. So I mean, that's a huge, just hearing that out of your voice is perfect for me. Thank you.
Yeah, and what's interesting too, because with this whole, you know, Provia that just came on board, in the purchasing department, we're not dealing with them at all. You know, the branches are obviously, and you guys are creating your own POs. But what happens is Lynn Riley, who works in our department, she gets a report every week from AP of any invoices that got kicked out, meaning like our PO doesn't match. And Provia has been a huge, huge issue. So is Anderson, so is Brockway. It's mostly the vendors that we don't touch in purchasing, because when it comes down to, like, you know, say you create a 4,000 item number for Parkside, if the cost is incorrect, you know, Bill, who's ordering it, I mean, he should be, when he gets the confirmations, changing it. But it's mostly, you know, the vendors that we don't touch at all. So
Right.
It would, you know, and that's good to know, because I will, you know, could talk to Marty Rinaldi too, and just make sure that he's enforcing that, you know, with the branches, because you guys are one team and then there's 36 others.
Right.
So just something you can pass along to anybody who's not on this call. You know, other than that, it's, you know, sometimes, you know, obviously making sure you're looking up things correctly, because we do have, like, for all of AZEC, all of TimberTech, all of, you know, most of trucks, we have all those part numbers. So it's important to look up to make sure you don't have that part number in SAP before creating a 4,000 item number. And then, you know, obviously the correct description, you know, anything you want to make sure that the vendor has, so that you're not getting the phone call afterwards. If you
Right.
have their part number, that, I think a lot of them, you don't even need a description, they want the part number. So anything that you might be getting a call back from either the vendor or from somebody, in the purchasing department, just letting them know, asking you what you need, that's where we need more information filled out.
And anything pertinent that can't fit into the description field on a part number, I would suggest using the sales to purchase order text on a line item when you create it. If there's a quote number you need to reference or anything like that, that information will carry over to the PO. It's a lot better than sending someone an email and saying, hey, I just placed this order, make sure you reference this quote. That way you've already put it on there and that will carry right over to the PO. You don't even need to contact anyone to make sure that's taken care of.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. The vendor minimums and ordering process. The minimums that we deal with our vendors it's a big range. Some of our vendors are specials only. Some of them we can only buy the truckload. Things are ordered by the pallet, can be ordered by the boxes. Those vendor minimums are something that purchasing deals with the vendor about. So as a branch or customer care, when you're placing an order, you don't need to meet that minimum for us to get a delivery from that vendor. More often than not, it is a branch specific minimum we need to meet. So for example, the minimum for Holden Humphrey is $250. If you place an order for a customer and it's $20 into Norwood, you don't need to make sure that customer orders $250 to get a delivery. Nor all of Norwood's orders totaled would need to equal $250. If they don't, we bring it into another branch in the company, and both branch managers of those branches are informed of where the PO should be going. We also try and let the person who wrote up the order know so that they're aware if that may add a little bit of an extended lead time to their order instead of the normal 3 to 5 business days they were expecting. I would also recommend on siding vendors especially, try not to rely on order days as a deadline to give your customers. Mastic gets ordered on Wednesdays and we are able to add some things Thursday mornings. I would not tell your customer they have until Thursday morning because Thursday morning orders are not guaranteed. I would try and let them know if they could get you the information by the end of day Tuesday or maybe midday Wednesday, that would be a better point. Try and give them a little bit of wiggle room because if they do get you the order on Thursday, there's no guarantee we can add it on and you may have cost your customer another week lead time. I don't know what the certainty order days are. I can get that information from Bill and send it out. He does 1 zone per day, but I'm not sure the order of that.
I think it's I think certainty is more flexible.
Yeah, they do have a longer delay between their orders and cutoffs. Mastic is 1 day, and that is it. Any questions regarding minimums ordering process?
Well, actually, maybe. I had a few people ask, is there a list that we can go to that actually shows like a minimum? For example, what was it the other day we bumped into? Let me see if I can remember exactly the material. But it was something that I know purchasing emailed, I think it was Brandy or something, or someone saying they need to order a full box. Is there something before we get to that point, something showing, or maybe, I don't know, and not an error, but something stopping you from saying, or put full box quantity only, like something to default where it prompts to us? How do we know what box quantities as opposed to individual?
I think in the case of that, that's probably, and I could be wrong, but I'm just thinking, I'm saying to Sandra, it's probably like if it's a color of siding that's not stocked anywhere, like then we don't stock like the J channel, then it's going, so we can only, so in general, you got to think of with Certainty Mastic Min, we can only buy siding accessories by the full carton. So if a customer comes in and wants blue and we don't stock it anywhere, then you're going to get a call from Billy or from Sandra saying, hey, you got to order a full carton. We don't put that in the system. First of all, we'd be trying to maintain like thousands and thousands of items, but second of all, stock policy changes all the time, so that, you know, today nobody's, you know, stocking that new color of Certainteed, and 3 weeks later everybody is. And then when you think about all the accessories that Certainteed and Mastic have that we don't stock, like, you know, weird size J channels and miter corners and things like that. So, but however, I will say, and then it's up to the branch. I mean, people order the full carton anyway, and then the branch ends up sitting on it. So I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but we can't force the system to say a carton, especially too, what happens is, because we've talked about this before, we're going to end up losing money as a company, because someone's going to not realize that it's a carton. They're going to order 3 pieces for a customer. It's going to be 3 cartons. He's going to hand them 3 cartons, and he would have paid, you know, it just, we would be in a lot of trouble if we ended up doing that. So just rule of thumb for most things, if it's siding accessories, it's not stocked anywhere, that's when you're going to get a call from someone on the, in purchasing on that. Other than that, there's very few things that are full cartons. I think we try to, like, I remember random AZEK items, and we put full carton only in the description.
Yep.
But it's really more of the siding accessories that are out there.
Yeah, and for example, like there's some roofing that is only full pallets, but there are some other types of roofing where they'll break pallets. So unfortunately, it does vary based on the type of product and the which one they're able to break or not. So I don't know if there's an easy way for them, other than when they're placing the order, if they have a question, to give us a call.
Okay. What's the turnaround period on something like that? Let's say, for example, right? And I'm only asking because I know that we bumped into something. What's the turnaround period? Like if something is, for example, we have to pay freight, right? Because it's not part of the freight program or whatever. For purchasing to contact us. Do you guys have, like, when are you looking at these POs? Is it a 24, 48-hour turnaround that we should be hearing back from you guys, or how do we go about it?
It would probably be the day they wouldn't know until the day they were placing the order. So say, you know, today Billy was looking at, you know, Certainteed siding for Lincoln. Today's the day he's looking at the rec. So then he's going to go through and say, okay, you know, someone just tried to order 2 pieces of a miter corner that we don't stock. That's when you're going to hear from him. So
yeah,
because we don't have the manpower to be looking at recs every day. That's, you know, that's why there's a schedule. So, you know, it's one of those, unfortunately, that yes, that order could have been placed, you know, 3 days ago, but until Billy's ready to place that order, he's not going to see it.
Right, okay. So we're probably just looking at a date of when they actually placed the order then. Because we bumped into columns and you know, they gave the pricing to the customer, and then he came back to us saying there's a freight charge on it, and then we had to go back to the customer and saying there's a freight charge. Customer wasn't happy, obviously, because they were expecting us to say it ahead of time, but it's something that we don't know what's, you know.
Actually, what kind of freight charges should only be on vendors that are truly like special order. So like we don't have the only thing with the freight charge for, like, you know, if it was, so that's always the case. I would say if it's the special order vendors, like I don't know, give me some examples, Sandra.
So like, for example,
AFCO, what I'm talking about is AFCO.
Yeah, so AFCO always has a freight charge if the order is under 250 pounds.
Okay.
And since we don't stock AFCO, I would say like 100% of the time, there's always going to be a freight charge.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I'm sure Bill didn't tell you until he saw the order, saw that it was under 250 pounds. Yeah, so I mean,
Yeah,
unfortunately, that's something.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know how we would head that off other than people to check, because that is a
So I
special.
think going forward, on special orders, that we don't normally order from vendors and it's a special order, we should just assume that there's a freight charge. Do we call you guys and say, okay, what's the freight charge going to be? Do we have an answer? Like, those are the things that we need to, like, where do we go from there? If, like, let's say AFCO, I'm like, okay, now I know there's a freight charge. Right? I wasn't handling this, someone else was, and I wasn't aware. So it's a good, you know, learning lesson for me. So, when you ordered this, there's a freight charge. Now I call you guys. Is there like a flat rate freight charge that we know, or is it something that we have to constantly call in to say, hey, what's this going to be?
So that's going to vary by vendor and if there's a freight charge or not. Like, for example, AFCO is always $108 if it's under 250 pounds. But then there could be another vendor where we have to pay freight based on the weight of the product, which would be varying depending on what we were ordering.
So I
we
guess,
call you guys.
We don't have a lot of vendors that charge freight, so.
Okay.
is there like a list of like maybe 6 at least we can share where?
I would have to go through every vendor's notes to find out what vendors charge freight or not.
We can put that on our list, to-do list, more of like, even if, you know, won't be tomorrow, but just putting together something where, hey, every time I order AFCO, I got to call AFCO and find out, you know, what the freight is going to be. And like Cindy said, it's very few, because most of our vendors, like even if you think of like a Parkside or something, I mean, they're local, right? They're delivering to our branches all the time. So it's like, even if you're ordering a special order, you know, decking, we're not getting charged for that. So it's those random ones. So we can certainly look at.
Who calls on that, Wendy, though? Do you guys call on the freight, or do we call?
No, you guys should be calling.
We should be calling.
Right, so that you're adding, so that you're adding your freight charge to, and again, at the end of the day, we don't, I always tell the department, we don't police the freight, right? So if you guys choose, or the branches choose not to charge the customer, that's your decision. So because I've heard before, hey, they didn't charge the customer, like, that's not our problem. Like, we're not responsible for the margins and if, and if we're charging the customer freight or not. So that's your call once you get the freight charge and what you want to do with it. I mean, obviously we want you to charge the customer. We're all here to get our bonuses at the end of the year, but that's not a purchasing decision on what you do with that freight charge.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions on that topic? Okay. All right.
So next topic was how to look up POs. If the item is a non-stock item, so it has that B item category in the system, you can use a transaction.
And we can no longer see your screen, so I don't know if you're sharing.
Yep, I haven't shared it yet.
Okay, all right.
Just finding it, yep. Just give me a second. So this transaction is called ME2K. So you can search purchasing documents by account assignment. So this is just an example order. So this is exactly how you would fill it out. You would put the order number in this SD document field. Purchasing org should be 3,000, scope of list best, and everything else is blank. So then you just hit execute, and this tells you the purchase order that is assigned to that order. Another way to look up stuff, I know that you do place orders for things that aren't special order items. You would have to use MD04 and look up the item number in the branch that you needed to see it in. Let me just go to MD04. I will share that in just a minute.
Not sure. Here you go. It's coming.
So this is what MD04 looks like. You would put in the material number and the plant, and then if you press enter, if there were an order for this and they stocked it in this branch, you would see it right here. This is for stocked items, the N category on your orders. You would use MD04 to look those up. Unfortunately, you can't use that other screen, ME2K, because they don't correlate back and forth. That's the only way you can look up stuff in ME2K is if it is a special order item, that B item category.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Any questions on how to look up POs?
Customer care, are you guys familiar with these screens? I mean, I'm still learning SAP, so I've been in these screens, but I'm curious, are these screens that you guys have gone into before?
Yes,
Yep.
I have.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Also, if you go into the document flow of the order, just get into the order. Just give me 1 second. So if you look up an order in VA03, let me just, I will share in just a second. Why doesn't it show the screen to share?
Did you actually name it unshare?
Let me try again. There it is. So if you go into VA03 and enter your order, hit enter. This button up here is called the document flow. So line 1 of this order, as you can see, the item category is a ZOB1. So if you go up to the document flow, it will show you the purchase order for that line. This, like ME2K, will only work for items that have that B item category that are special order. Those are attached to the PO, so that's why you can see this flow of the documents. That's why you have to use MD04 for stocking items, because they don't have this attachment.
Does anybody have any questions on this, or like you feel like you're missing, you know, is there anything else that you?
Wendy, real quick, I'm sorry. I had just tell me before I came into this meeting asking me to ask the question of, let's say they have a B code, right? But there's another branch, and I'll use the Shredder as an example because you can FedEx the Shredder if you had to. So if it's in another location out of zone and we ask them to obviously STO it and then FedEx it, the question that came up was, do we have to change that B code to, let's say, N because it's a stock in that branch, and that way you don't order it? Or
Yes. Yes. So if
because then you guys, it'll do a rack. But the question was, if we're getting it from another branch, we change it, right, to N1?
Yes, yeah. So if you're going to STO the material from someplace else, or say, for example, this branch had a return and they show it in stock, you have to change it to an N to be able to pull that material. If you leave it as a B, we will order it from the vendor.
That's what I thought. And I knew that. I just figured I'd ask since the question came up. Good. Okay.
Yeah, so the B versus N comes up because if, you know, in theory, if an item is not stocked anywhere, it's going to, as soon as you write up an order, it's going to have that B code. So, but, you know, but again, like Sandra was saying, that doesn't mean we're not sitting on material somewhere, especially like, you know, an example is, so Certainteed Siding just had all those discontinuations in 2019. You know, well, we can't get it from them anyway. We might have changed it to non-stock, but, you know that Berlin has, 30 pieces of siding. You might write up the order, see it as a B, and then knowing that you have to pull it, then you change it, and that it pulls it from stock versus creating a rec to the vendor.
And then whose responsibility is to get it from one branch to another? Us to call the branch, or purchasing will see it and have the branch send it to us?
If you decide you want to pull it from another branch that has it, you would have to figure all that out. Like, you would contact the branch and all of that. If we decide to pull it, we would get in touch with the branches.
You guys do? Okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
Any other questions? Okay. I know that credit holds have come up a couple of times. So purchasing doesn't know when an order is on credit hold. The only way we know is if someone calls and says, hey, why didn't this get ordered? And we look and there aren't any recs for any of the items on the order. We don't get any type of notification to tell us that the order is on credit hold. When you save an order that is on credit hold, you would get a message down at the base of the SAP screen right down here. I believe some of them say like static credit check not approved, or this order has put them over their limit. I couldn't find any screenshots. I checked with operations to see if they had any of what the error messages are, because I guess there are multiple that come up. So I would pay close attention when you save an order to what the error message down the bottom says, because it doesn't pop up as like a red or yellow error. It's green and like it went through, because it did technically create the order. You just have to do the extra step of contacting the credit department to take them off of hold. If you go into the order, you can also check to see if the customer is on credit hold. Hit this button right here, document header. And if you go to status, it has a credit status line. So this order says approved, so that means that they're not on credit hold. If this said not approved or not performed, then they're on credit hold. So you would have to contact the credit department to have this released before we would be able to place any purchase orders against it.
And I think that's just so for SAP, the reason why we're not seeing recs is that's done purposely, because the system wouldn't want purchasing to order something for a customer that's on credit hold. So that's why we don't even, it's not like we see a rec and get a message. We don't even know it's out there.
Well, thank you for that. That's really neat.
Any other questions about credit holds? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing now. Just a couple of things. Voicemails. If you do leave any of us voicemails, we'd appreciate it if you could leave as much information as possible. Hi, it's Sandra. I have a customer looking for 6 squares of mastic barkwood in Cameo. When do you think I'd see that in Norwood? If you could give me a call back. This is Lisa at extension 8645. Like, that's a great voicemail. It helps us to be able to look into stuff before we call you back. That way we're not on the phone with you trying to search through open POs or anything like that. We can do all of the background work and then call you to make the phone call as quick as possible to get you the information right up front so that we can get back to your customer as soon as possible. We do prefer email. We're all at our desks like you guys all day long. So it's easier for us to get an email, be able to look up the information and respond to you back that way. It also is easier for you guys, I would think, getting the information in an email. So if you get caught up and aren't able to get back to that customer right away, you can reference the information back later on, since it'll be in your email. We do ask that if you do get an email from a customer, try not to forward it along to us with the customer on there, or copy the customer on any emails you're sending to us. You guys handle conversing with the customers. We try to not get involved with that. I did have a branch that copied a customer and he actually called me looking for his material. So that was something I needed to head off at the pass. So if you have an email from a customer and want to just forward that to us, we can do that. Just don't copy the customer on anything that we would be responding to.
So that's pretty much what we had based on the requests from your team. Certainly answer questions, have an open discussion on anything that Sandra went through. Feedback.
I have a question, if I may.
Sure.
Going back when we're doing 4,000 numbers, and you said when you have the list and you have a moving price, I think there's a lot of confusion on the moving price when people see that and they're not too sure what is that price. Is it possible?
It's the same, actually. It's the same. So that's the cost. So you have a special for a burger and they give you a cost of, $2.43. You should be putting that cost in both areas. I mentioned earlier, like, we can't change that. That's terminology from SAP. But Sandra mentioned before, there is an SOP out there that explains, what price to be using. So that's definitely it's always cost, no matter what. It's always the same cost.
Okay, and I think that's what confuses some people sometimes concerning that. You can't do anything about it. That's understandable.
Okay.
I have a question. Yep. So when we create, or a rec is created for the material, let's say that we create, like Brosco or whatever the case is, if we forget to ME57 it, so we don't create the PO, and it just kind of sits there. And I only asked because I know before when Brian O'Connell was in, he would send emails every now and then for stuff that would sit in there for like Reeb, or stuff that would sit in there for Brosco and say, hey, this has been sitting in the system, nothing's been done with it. If you want to order it, you have to create the PO for it. Who sees that? Or does someone see it? Because someone was seeing it, I'm assuming that's why Brian would send us the email. Does someone see that, or does someone see it and just not do anything with it? Or, because, I mean, obviously it's on us, so if it's on us if we forget, but does...
Yeah, so what Brian was doing, contacting branches to let them know that they didn't order stuff, That was never a policy we had. That was something that he took upon himself to do.
Gotcha.
Unfortunately, we don't have the manpower to check every rec to then email that person to find out why they didn't order it. A lot of times they could be waiting for, like, if the customer, you know, needed to put down a deposit and didn't realize it, they're going to come back. Or they decided to put it on hold for a little while to check their measurements. It would be a lot of back and forth for us trying to make sure everyone ordered stuff that they're responsible for ordering.
Okay. And then I have one more question.
Okay.
As far as something getting back ordered. So let's say you order something, it has whatever lead time. And this happened to me once. I don't have a specific example because it was a long time ago, but I'm only remembering it because it was brought up. And they contacted someone in purchasing or the buyer and to let them know that it's been back ordered or something changed with it. Are you guys, or is purchasing supposed to let us know or not let us know so that way we can let our customer know it's been back ordered? I mean, I think the time it happened to me, it was like shingles. So they called and said, nope, this is going to be back ordered. We let this person know, which is the buyer. But then the branch or the person who ordered it was never contacted. So we can let the customer know. I mean, so basically they would contact you guys, being the buyer, saying, this has been back ordered or whatever, you know, this is not going to come in when you originally thought it was going to come in, but then there's no communication to the branch or the person. Are you guys supposed to let us know or no?
Well, if we are informed of a back order by the vendor, we do try to, if it's a special order item, let the person who wrote the order know, but we aren't always informed. A lot of times what vendors do is they'll update their shipping paperwork, so then the receiver at the branch would get paperwork that says that's back ordered, and sometimes it ends with that person. So, like, I know that if I get a back order report every week from Mastic, if something's back ordered and it's a customer order, I let the person know. But other than that, like if it's a stock item, I don't tell the branch it's back ordered. If I don't get that report, I don't go looking into items that are still open to find out if they were back ordered or not.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was just wondering for specific stuff, like special order stuff, not necessarily just like the stock loads or anything.
Yep. Yeah, with the special order stuff.
Because I know I've seen your emails come through for the other ones for stock orders and stuff.
Yeah, if it's something that's going to be a longer lead time than the normal lead time. So for example, like Wolf, I know some of their items are like a 3-week lead time because they're not stocked at both locations. Those things, if it's a longer lead time, we would let you know. But if it's a regular lead time item and it ends up getting back ordered and we don't know that it's back ordered, unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to let you know. But we do try to let people know if we do get notice that something is back ordered.
So, quick question, Wendy, on that. So, let's say, for example, something was back ordered, correct? And you're not notified, because I had that on my list too. And you're not notified that it's back ordered. And do you guys not see it in a week or two that we haven't gotten it and follow up with it on your end? Like, why haven't we gotten this? And it's still or
it's actually it's up to the branches to run their open PO reports, not us. So the branches are responsible for running their open PO reports, cleaning it up, and then if they have any questions on anything, they're going back to the buyer.
And that'd also be something that they'd be able to head off when they're doing their receiving. So if they get a PO that has, 50 line items on it and they only get 49, that should be a red flag as to, hey, I should check into this item. I wonder why it's not on here.
That's interesting. I'm assimilating that right now. So you guys place the orders with the vendor, the PO gets placed, but there really is no, and this is not a criticism, I'm just trying to understand it. There's no follow-up procedure on purchasing's ends. Like once you send the PO, your portion is done, and then at that point, the branch takes full ownership of making sure that the vendor fulfills on that PO?
No, that's not.
Well, we do get confirmations for stuff. So if, like that example I just mentioned, if there's a 50-line PO, we'd get a confirmation that says 50 lines. And according to us, that PO is complete, it's going to ship complete. Between the time that we get that confirmation and the time the vendor puts it together to ship it out and it gets to the branch, somewhere along the lines, an item went missing. The vendor could have been back ordered on it. They could have missed the shipment. We're not going to know that. So we don't get like another shipping notice saying, oh, hey, 49 out of 50 lines are shipping. The branch would know when they go to receive it in, hey, we only got 49 out of 50 lines. So if an item was missing off a PO, they should be letting us know or contacting the vendor to find out why it's missing.
That's correct, but we're talking about stuff that's recorded as a back order. We know it's a back order, and it's still, my question is, we know it's a back order, right? So the question is, it doesn't come in when they give a date, or it's not there. Who's responsible? That was my question. Whose responsibility is it then? Like, do you guys run a report showing that it's still back order, it's still on a, who follows up with that?
Right, like open items,
Yes.
like incomplete POs, open items.
Yeah.
A lot of vendors do not ship back orders, so it just gets closed out. So the branches should know, they have a list of which vendors back order and which vendors don't. When it comes to stock stuff, and we do end up, I'm saying the branches should run an open PO report. I don't know how often they do. We do end up cleaning it up, every, probably at least once a month or once every other month on stock stuff. If it's special, we're usually, like in the case of, siding, like Sandra mentioned, like we're getting, we know about it. Sandra's seeing the confirmation and that it didn't ship, so she's letting the branch know. If it's a stock item, then usually the vendor just cancels it off the PO. Sandra's going to see, when she's looking at, Mitten the next time around, she's going to see some old, PO for white siding. She's just going to cancel it off. But specials, we do know about, and we're letting the branches know when it's back ordered. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I had a quick follow-up to Jasenia's first question about, and forgive me, I'm not as acquainted with some of these processes, but where we have, I'll call it a pending PO, where Brian had kind of enlisted his own process of reaching out and prompting people for those. And I understand what you said about, manpower, and I totally get that. I guess my question would be, is there a way for us in customer care to get access or visibility to anything that we have pending? So that could be something that we could own, that we could proactively identify those versus.
So you mean pending? Do you mean like in the case of Brockway, where like someone wrote up an order and forgot to do the ME57?
That's,
Yeah.
I believe, yeah.
Yeah, so basically like the Brosco or reborders or things that we have to create, or even like the Dave sheet metal ones that just kind of sit in there and create a rec, but because we never went ahead and created the PO for it, they're just sitting ducks in the system.
Right, exactly. To have some kind of safety net where there's somebody at least identifying those and prompting.
So like you guys said, Brian kind of went ahead on his own to go and do that. What was he looking at that he saw that, or is there something that we can look at to kind of follow up and so it doesn't just get stuck?
Yeah, because I can see that being something that either Wanda or myself own, where periodically we go in and we run these reports that let us know there's some somebody neglected.
Well, that would be that's an open rec report, and then you'd be looking at the branches too. Let me think about that one and see if it's just something that I might be able to have a report triggered that I can send out. We don't want you guys going to purchasing screens and looking at open recs, because then things are going to be ordered that might not, you know what I mean? It's like then all of a sudden you have, so I'm making a list as we're talking, so I will put that on. We have a reporting tool called Every Angle that we use, and I get reports like run and email to me. So I'm going to check into that and see if that's something that I can have a report, scheduled to run.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. I will get back to you.
That would be great. That would be awesome.
Okay.
Yeah. And I had just, I'm sure some other people may have questions, but since I have the mic, so to speak, we had an issue come up, and Wanda, feel free to chime in on this one too. I wrote down Comerling. I think that was one, and I guess I'm still trying to wrap my head around how it works, where we had a customer needing products from a vendor that was in the system, but wasn't necessarily a distribution vendor. We determined that it was a manufacturing vendor. And we had a couple instances where the order went in and the rec stayed in there, but since it wasn't one of your vendors, no action was taken, but then manufacturing didn't pick it up either. So it sat there. I think the two that we ran across was like 6 or 7 weeks until the customer called and we realized that the rec was just sitting there with no action taken. Wanda, I don't know if you could add more. Sandra, I don't know if you recall this, but it was kind of going back and forth like, okay, how does manufacturing know there's a wreck in the system pending? And if it isn't one of yours, is there some type of action that you take to prompt them to order it versus having the order go in and just sit there until the customer calls us?
Yeah, so that's been resolved. So yes, that was going on because manufacturing purchasing department has gone through a lot of changes, and Lou Nolte used to take care of those. And when he left, nobody stepped up to the plate. So we took it over already. So we already put a process in place. I told CC up in purchasing, in manufacturing, we now have a report we run daily that shows open recs for like any, I'll call it non-distribution vendor. So you should not see that issue anymore. So it was just like Luke had a process, he left, and that was it. Hence, and that's why we've taken over patio doors too. So if you are still seeing any of those, let us know, but we have resolved the problem.
That's awesome. Okay, I appreciate that. No,
So I'm gonna ask,
in the process left with them.
I'm gonna ask Lisa, excuse me, on that same process. So does that go for branch 21 as well as this, for example, that vendor?
No, so we are not responsible. So CC's purchasing department is responsible for manufacturing branches, not us. So that you'll have to talk to her about how they do that, but we do not buy for anything other than the 36 distribution branches.
Okay.
So if if there's orders going for those two, I don't know what her process is for that.
Okay, so we would need to, Wanda, you and I can circle back to her to find out what her process is for that then.
Okay, that works.
All right, thank you.
Guys, even though it's like for example, that was branch 01, you're saying that's all set, right? Branches, you're complete, doesn't matter who the vendor is, if it's a branch, you guys are gonna handle that.
Yep.
Okay. When you're ready for questions, I do have some, but I wanted to give anyone else a shot. If they have any more questions, I have another one too.
I have a quick question. You know how we were just talking about if there's wrecks in the system and we haven't done a PO for them, if there are any reports, are there any reports that you guys get that we have done a PO, but we never took that next step, like submitted it to Provia? Do you guys get any reports? So you have no way of knowing that until basically the customer calls.
Right,
pretty much.
Because and even for us, well, the thing, so even for us, it's like the system automatically sends a PO to the vendor.
Right.
So
well, not for Reeve and Provia. So
right.
Yeah. So if you place that PO, all we see is that a PO was created. I don't know that you went into that other system and placed that PO.
Okay. I just didn't know if there was something that said this was never submitted.
That is a good one.
I know that's an extra step sometimes we forget to do. We get busy.
That's a good one. That's true. We'll have to figure that one out, Karen. Well, that's a good one. I didn't even think of that. Busy season's coming up. When
I had a quick question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
The crown columns, I had a PO that was off by like 10 days, and I just wondered if there's any, not so much related to this particular order, but are there any products or items like this where the POs just aren't ever really that good? The dates aren't accurate that you know of? I know the SAP, when we come into our own windows and manufacturing, they're pretty close usually, but some of the SAPs for some of the other products aren't always the case.
Well, we update the POs when we receive confirmations from the vendor. So if Parkside sent us a confirmation that had one date on it and then it ended up getting back ordered and they didn't let us know, we wouldn't be able to update that.
So for example, this one here, if the original date was 2/10 and then it came in on the 20th and there was never an updated, if you guys got an updated date, you would have put it to the 20th or something like that. Okay.
Yeah, and we try to update dates on POs once we get confirmations. And if you're in a PO, under the communication tab, there's a your reference field. If there's a confirmation number there, then that means that was the date that we received from the vendor.
Okay.
We have someone outside of this department doing the confirmations. That's how we realize they're important, but we can't get to them here, so we try, but if that person's out, we're a little bit behind. If the department was doing confirmations all day, then we would not get our ordering done. So we're just trying to use whoever we can in corporate to help us with that stuff. But like I said, it's updated, but then, if Parkside isn't calling Billy or sending a new confirmation, then we would have no way of knowing.
And that's where I come in again, Wendy, is I know you have no way of knowing, but that's going back to the reporting, and I guess you're saying, I know you don't have the manpower or whatever to do that, but that's, I think, where we're bumping into issues where we need, whether it's assigned to, someone, whatnot, but maybe having that report and saying, oh, this did not come in. I mean, that's what we kind of do with the window and door side of it. You know what I mean? Someone who's looking at the report saying this didn't come in, and, having someone call out what's going on. This has a date of this and it still hasn't come in.
Right.
That's where we're asking about reporting. I get the manpower, but maybe we can find a way to, fit it in somewhere, or find a way to minimize that, where we're giving our customers exactly customer service, not having on a time that we gave them.
So the one thing we can do, like I said, when I talk about automated reporting, I can get a back order report every week. It's just still not gonna give the information of why, what happened with it from the vendor. So we could certainly, change or look into the specials, but it's just a matter of if there's
something when you do the report that purchasing can't send back to them, like you know how you send POs, like something saying where, question mark back order, or question mark, you know what I mean? Status.
Yeah, no, definitely. It definitely trigger an email to the vendor, so we can look into that.
Or something, yeah, based on the report. That's all. Like, you know what I mean? Just to follow up for our customers.
Yep.
Like Paul said, on things that are like 10 days out, that's a long time from when we tell them,
Do you think this happens more with the special, like you're more talking about special orders, correct?
I think so. Yeah, that's where we're
Okay.
bumping into a lot of these are more the special orders, because that's what we're following up with them. When it's standard, it's pretty self-go. It's easy going. There's
Right.
You'll have onesies and twosies, but it's pretty, we can look up they have another truck coming in or whatever, you know what I mean? So that's easy going. It's more of the special order stuff that we're seeing a lot of wrong lead times or longer lead times, let's put it that way. You know what I mean? And just a lot of back order stuff or
also, with the special orders, like for example, that Crown one, I don't know when they contacted you between that like 10-day period. But that is something that you could also contact the vendor on if you wanted to confirm that date was correct. Like if the date on the PO says, 2/24, today's 2/25, and we haven't received it in yet, those are things that you can call the vendor on just to confirm that like maybe it missed the truck yesterday and it'll be there today.
Yeah, and I did, and I was unfortunately the last person to get them. So once I contacted, it was close to the 20th. But when I saw the original PO date of the 10th, that would have prompted me 10 days ago to call the vendor. But I was getting it more on the 19th, right when it was getting to us. But yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I have a question about REAP ordering. I know we do it all through 2G and stuff now, but the stuff that is not in 2G that creates the B1 codes or we create the part numbers, are we emailing that to purchasing and asking you guys to send it off to them still?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that is the process.
I don't know if everyone knows that.
I don't think everyone knows
because
that.
I know when I was in the branch, a lot of times if, we got a quote from Reeb, say, and we created the 4,000 number and referenced that quote, we got the PO and that was the end of it. And I don't necessarily know if everyone knows that you guys still need to submit that PO to Reeb.
I did send that out in a process email in July. I believe I also resent it to Wanda a couple months ago. So I can resend it again if you don't have it, but that has been sent out multiple times.
Yeah, no,
I
have it.
I have it and I know it. I don't think that everyone knows it.
Yeah, I think that is partly why we're on this call today. So I'll be circulating this recording to everybody, at least in customer care.
Yeah, customer care knows.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I do send those emails out. I can't force people to read them or follow what I'm saying, so.
That's correct. Customer care knows, but I think what Karen's saying, maybe the branches, but I get, at first, a lot of customer care, we were so used to the process of doing that some people, like you said, even though you sent the email, we were still going old school. So I resent it to everyone, Wendy, when we started this communication and stuff. So I do appreciate that. We did get it, Sandra, and I sent it off to customer care. I think we are going to be on board. And again, we're doing all this because we're going to resend something as well, just so that everyone's on board and like that. We're getting into busy season, so we want to make sure we're doing this as smooth as we can, because our job is to obviously, be on the phones, customer service, taking care of the customers. So we're trying to piece out where do you stand as opposed to us trying not to call vendors if that's where you're supposed to be doing, and it saves us on, calling vendors plus the customers and things like that. So if we can try to eliminate some of that, whether I'm doing reporting, you're doing reporting, and I think busy season, phone season is coming up, so we're trying to get everything straight on that end. That's all.
And I'll work with the regionals in terms of getting a reminder out on the REAP aspect that we just talked about. And then I think just to drive home the point, and I think one is doing that well, is one of our biggest pain points as a customer service department is customers notifying us when something's delayed, and then us having egg on our face, and then, and trying to find ways and put in tools and processes in place where we can own it, but we can have the reports or data that help support our conversations with a customer so that we can proactively contact them. Because I think the most challenging is when the customer calls us, and then that's when we figure something's been delayed or back ordered or never shipped. So I think that is obviously a strong theme on this call today as well. So I do appreciate you looking into any type of automation and reporting, not to create more work for you, because we can definitely take ownership of it here. But if we need the resources and the data to support that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
I get what you're saying though, Wendy. I mean, you can only send out so many emails.
Absolutely.
And if we're not reading them, that's on us. I totally get that. I know lately there's a lot of new employees. And I know for me, and I'm sure a lot of us have had this happen when a customer calls and we don't know that it never got ordered until he called 3 weeks later to see if it was in. So, but you can only send out so many emails, so I get it.
Well, and that's the thing, like Sandra was saying, when she sent out the REAP, you guys saw it. It went to every brand, every person at Harvey's, minus the manufacturing team. So, and part of it too is, and we've gone through a few new people too, also, but we can't control how the branches train people. So, it's like, Sandra can email processes all day long, and it could come from me or whoever, but the problem is someone new starts in a branch, and they need to figure out how to train them. I mean,
you're right.
So it's obviously we are here. We are a support department. Like I said, I will certainly look into automating reporting, because we know you guys you're getting busy. We obviously have we'll hopefully be in a full team in another month or so. But anything that we can do to send you stuff, I'll certainly look into.
I have one more thing, Wendy and Sandra.
Sure.
So I have, going back again to our beautiful AFCO columns. So there's two things. One thing is, so we learned the hard way. I guess I had called Bill on this. So I'm just going to give you the scenario of what happened. We ordered it in September, and we ordered AFCO columns in September for round 8x8 columns in white. And I can give you a material number if you'd like, so you at least can see what I'm looking at.
Okay.
5502-88001. And I'm going to give you another one, please. 5501-88001. So the scenario on this is, when we look this up, right? Third round, and the customer said, no, I want square and smooth. I got round and fluted. Okay. So he went ahead in November and reordered it for them, square, column, 8x8, white, cap and base. Nothing on these descriptions say fluted or smooth, okay? You know how you can go into like the vendor code, and sometimes some of the vendor codes, like their actual vendor numbers, you can see Sometimes it'll say like a measurement, an FL or SM or something, so we can figure that out. Well, none of these part numbers have any of that, whether it's fluted. So he reordered it. He saw that it didn't say fluted and assumed that they were smooth again. Well, guess what? We got fluted. So I called Bill and asked Bill, hey, Bill, how do we know if this is fluted or smooth? Would you question it, or would a vendor question that? Like, how do we know? And he looked up the part and he's like, I don't know what you're asking. And I was like, well, if you're looking up this part number, right, can you tell me if that's fluted or smooth? And he says no. And I was like, well, that's my question. If we can't tell it's smooth or fluted, right, we assumed, which we shouldn't assume anyway, but he did, he assumed, how do we determine what's fluted and what's smooth? Because I'm looking on the online catalog for this company and it doesn't reference a part number, it doesn't reference anything. So even if we came, I mean, I guess if we did a 4,000 number, we could have, you know, did a description, but like you said, we go back to the part numbers in the system. Well, I called him because he's like, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know what you're really asking. And he kept saying that. You know what?
Who said that, Bill? Who said that, Bill?
Bill, yeah.
Okay, so a couple things with that. There's two things. Number one, and that's a great example of, you know, if you're not getting an answer that is acceptable, and I don't mean that you call Bill and say, what's the lead time for CertainTeed siding? And he's like, it's 3 weeks and you're not happy about it, so you call Sandra. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying if you're getting that answer from Bill or Josh or Anthony, that's where you should go to Sandra. And Sandra would then, what she would do, because she knows the system and knows what needs to be done, she would tell me or tell Lynn, who updates item numbers, to go into these descriptions and change it so it matches, you know, and maybe we need to add a second one, right? I don't know off the top of my head. Maybe we only have 1 square column 8x8 AFCO in the system. We might need it to add a second item number. So one says smooth and one says fluted, or we need to call the vendor and get the part number. So, but if you're not, you know, if you're not getting an acceptable answer from Bill, and you know, I wouldn't have been happy with that answer either, you got to go to the next step. That's what Sandra's there for, and then that's what I'm there for if we need to go to even another step. So,
well, that's what I asked. I was like, so now what? And he was like, I don't know. I was like, well, I'll call the vendor then. I'll find out, because I want to know. I was like, they didn't send you anything like questioning, hey, you know, that's my question. They not ask you, hey, is this supposed to be fluted or smooth? Because me as a purchasing department or, you know, in a distributor, I would go to send this out. I question that, saying, all right, which ones do they want? Do they want fluted or, you know, being in a business? He was like, no, they didn't send anything. And I'm like, okay, so how do they determine which one to send? He's like, I don't know. So I called the vendor. I asked the vendor the same question. I was like, there's no part number on your online. I was like, I don't know. So I told them what the description was. I told them what the PO number was. And they told us that they go by pricing, our pricing. So for example, this 8x8 fluted column is, let's say, $136. And this is $139. It's like $3 difference or whatever. She was like, that's how we could tell. So we went based on the price. And we sent you what we thought was based on the price. So I'm just giving you the feedback, because if we change this, and that's why I gave you both part numbers, those are fluted. If we can somehow put that in the system as fluted, so it doesn't happen again. But so that was going to be my next question. Who do we go to on something like this? Like when a product has to be changed, or we find situations like this?
So you could just email me directly on that stuff.
Okay.
So, and like I said, but in the case of that though, and I'm just going to, so are they do have part numbers? Yep. So that's interesting. So Sandra, we're just looking at these 2 item numbers. They do have a vendor part number in the system but you know what though, but that doesn't mean that that's what's on their website. So
I think with the AFCO columns, excuse me, I think all the parts numbers in the system are for aluminum columns, because that's what we always sold. Were AFCO aluminum columns, and I could be wrong, but I think their aluminum columns are only fluted.
No, yeah, you're wrong. I asked.
The aluminum ones?
That's what they said. They said they have both. I said the same.
Yeah, fiberglass ones that are smooth.
Yeah, I asked them the same thing, Karen. Yeah, I asked them the same thing, because I asked them the difference and stuff, and they said there is the only difference is pricing. But
Okay, well, I'm adding that to my list so we can check
Great.
AFCO in general. But like I said, that more importantly, I mean, obviously that's important because you want to get the right product. That's the type of thing, that should have been a phone call to Sandra, because she would have, either made the call to resolve it or told Billy to make the right call. Like that's not an acceptable answer from our department. So just
And that's just,
when
this
things
just
like
happened,
that.
just so you know. This just happened. Like, the customer called again just this last week or 2 weeks. I think it's been last week or something. I literally just said today, this morning before this meeting. So I had told Fitchburg, because they got hit with these columns twice in their warehouse. I felt really bad. But I, and again, we're talking about freight. So now we have to eat the freight that they send and also eat the freight that we're sending back. But again, it just happened. Literally, we just settled it this morning. So I actually told Bob, I'm like, great, I have a meeting with them out. Because he was like, who do we go to have them change that? I'm looking at this and I'm like, actually, I have a meeting this morning with them. So I will find out who and that way we can put a process to it. So
Right.
it really just happened this morning with that part of it with Bill. I spoke to him about 2 weeks ago.
Okay, so in the case of this order, are you guys all set now? Like the order was corrected?
They went and bought it somewhere else. No, they wanted to give him fluted again based on the info both times. So yeah, one was round. They changed it to square. They wanted square smooth. We ordered square thinking it was smooth because it didn't say FL or fluted or anything. And he ordered it. And so, and again, they went both times by, I guess, pricing as opposed to description.
Right, okay. Well,
See
we
that?
will fix it in the future.
Thank you, Wanda, on that. Is anybody else on customer care have questions that they want to present while we have this great opportunity with purchasing?
No.
Okay, thank you, Jay.
I think all my questions got answered.
Paul, did we get everything on your list? I know you had a couple things.
Yeah, you guys nailed it. Thank you
Sweet,
very
that's
much.
good. All right.
So what I can do then is, Sandra and I, in the next couple of days, we will put together just a summary of some of the open stuff. Mostly looks like it falls on me, which is totally fine. So I will look into some of those reports. We talked about the open recs with Brockway and Reeb, a way to do that. And then, like I said, we'll look at AFCO. If you want to, I will follow up with Marty Rinaldi and just see on the SOP for the 4,000 item number, if there's any clearer way to talk about that moving price and list, and I think it was list.
It says our cost.
It says our cost, okay. So I get feedback, when you guys look at that SOP on the 4,000 item numbers, after reading it, if you think, and that's more, I mean, you can certainly go through me or talk to Marty, if you think there's just another way for that list and moving price to be explained, I mean, we, like I said, that's, you guys deal with it and we deal with it between, the recs coming through with incorrect costs and the courts department, sending us reports of all these invoices that got kicked out because they're not matching. Like I said, Provia has been a huge issue from what I understand because the costs are incorrect on the POs. So if there's some way you think it should be worded better, definitely give me feedback or give Marty feedback, because that's been like an issue ever since we went to these 4,000 item numbers.
Okay, yeah, I think what I mentioned earlier, I'm going to circulate this recording. I'm going to attach copies of the SOPs for the 4,000 codes and ME57, and then I'll ask for feedback on the wording and make sure everyone, if there's opportunities to correct it, I can work with Marty directly and make some suggestions on tweaking that SOP to make it clearer for sure. I appreciate that.
Okay.
One last question, I promise.
Sure.
One last one. So back in March of 2018, we had gotten an email from Paul Paradise on Trim Solutions. And Trim Solutions is something that we order ME57 ourselves. I think I emailed Sandra a couple weeks ago on this. And he had sent us an email saying that they have freight charges, no charges from deliveries from this to this, orders from, this amount from this to this, 4 weeks lead time. He had, again, I have the email he had sent us. So when they update these, right, who gets these update charges, freight charges? Like, how do we know, for example, orders over $1,000? How do we know when we place a order if there's other orders that are going to be $1,000 and there's no freight fee, or if this order, I got to charge the customer that freight fee because there's no more orders and it's under the free freight.
Unfortunately, you're not going to know unless you check with Trim Solutions and see what else they're shipping, because you're not going to know what else the other branches have ordered.
Okay. And how do we know about the increases? Because obviously Paul Paradise had this email that he shared with everyone. Who took over that part of it, of getting like freight increases on vendors and things like that?
So all vendor communications go through me now. I haven't seen any, unless like I get an email from a vendor, like to update something, which usually they will. So I found the email too, it was from March of 2018. So you're saying that, and I will certainly go back to them and ask them, but you're saying like that has changed $1,000?
So I don't know. The problem is
okay.
Questions came up in our department because we're getting more calls now. The busy season's coming in, and we had a few calls about Trim Solutions, and there was a question whether we were still doing business with them or not. So I found that information. Yes, we're still doing business with them. Yes, we're still quoting with them. We quote direct, and I got all that information. So I was doing my homework. I saw they were talking about freight, and because this came up again, like how do we know which vendors charge freight, which ones don't? And these are questions that keep coming up on the freight. So I sent it to Sandra just saying, hey, I had this from March of 2018. Are these still accurate? Because if they're still accurate, I want to be able to share this with my team since there are questions coming up on Trim Solutions, so I could re-forward that same thing. And, Sandra answered back that you guys don't do Trim Solutions, so she's not sure of the freight policy, if they've changed or not. So she told me to check with Trim Solutions themselves, which is fine, but that's where we're trying to find out who's really responsible. Are we calling vendors all the time on this stuff, or do we have someone who's going to be finding this information out where we can say, you guys send us a yearly or whenever you get the updates, and that way we can share it with our team and there's no back and forth. I'm trying to minimize as much calls as we can outside and figure out whose job really is to do all this stuff so that we can go to the correct person for the info, first of all. And second of all, again, trying to help as much customers answering calls than calling out.
Right. So I would say something like, so normally, like you said, most of our vendors, there's no freight policy. Like this is, something completely different because they're shipping, from one location, making things special order for us. So this I will definitely follow up on. But when it comes to, most of our vendors, it's not really a freight policy, because if it's a stocking order vendor, or something where we do stock and specials, the purchasing agent or the buyer, they're responsible for knowing what the freight policy is so that they meet it. When it comes to special order vendors, for the most part, they're using a freight company, so it's not like something has changed. It's more of like, by Trim Solutions, it's kind of like its own, it's its own category because of what they do for us. But I would say anything else, we're not sending updates because it's not like, for example, ASCO Collins, right? Good example. Their freight, we don't even know what their freight policy is because they're shipping, they're pretty much shipping, I guess they decided it's 250 pounds or whatever it is, but if it's not, they're using a freight company to ship it, and we're getting charged whatever that, the UPS or FedEx is doing. So it's not like there's this it's not like, put it this way, we're not holding back documentation from the branches. Our vendors aren't, most of them don't fall into this category where it's something we need to, that we're, they're changing the freight policy and we got to share it. Because most of our vendors, it's the buyer's responsibility to know what the freight policy is and to meet it.
I have a good one. What if we can put like on your spreadsheet where you say who's responsible for what vendor, possibly putting on a column on there saying, call for freight or you know what I mean? Outside vendor call, something to flag us that it's something that our responsibility to call that is extra freight charges. It has nothing to do with what your normal ordering process is. To like, I guess to tell the difference between, special order, like, you know what I mean? Like we have to call for freight. It's our responsibility to get the freight ahead from the customer. You know what I mean? Like that way we call that vendor. Do you understand what I'm saying? Something like that?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Well, I had on my list from, earlier in the meeting about freight charges. We just have to go through our vendors and figure out, I mean, we have hundreds of vendors. So
Right.
obviously we know the bigger ones, we know we don't get concerned with. We have to meet the minimums for the CertainTeeds of the world and stuff. It's all those little guys. I mean, we got to just give us a little bit of time to go
Oh,
through
no, I
this
get you.
because,
Yep. Gotcha.
but yeah, we can certainly look into that.
Thank you
Awesome.
very much. I think it sounds
Awesome.
like that would
Thank
be
you.
very helpful. It sounds like that's something that's coming up quite a bit for us. So I appreciate your effort on that, Wendy and Sandra.
Thank you, ladies.
All right,
Is
thank
there
you.
anything else? I think we're good. Anybody else have anything? I know this went a little long, but I felt like it was super valuable. I hope everybody feels that way.
Yeah, it was. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome. And again, any follow-up questions, feel free to email us both and we can certainly, look into stuff for you guys.
Perfect. Thank you.
All
right,
thank
thanks.
you guys so much.
Bye,
Appreciate
everyone.
it. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.
I'm glad I